I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everybody. We will start with reviewing and signing payroll and accounts payable register for the period ending 4/9. We had accounts payable in the amount of $33,937.43. We had accounts payable in the amount of $20,840.80. We had an ACH payment to Swayze of $181,000, an ACH payment to the co-op of $585,237, and minimal overtime this week, 3 hours PD, 3.5 fire, and 0 highway. Did you get your rec? I see the rec folder.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Jonathan, sign it.
All right, give that to Joyce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
All right, next I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm an aye. And included in our consent agenda this week are public minutes from 4/18, non-public minutes 4/18, the rec manifest, the treasurer's report, and building permits, of which there were 23. So it was a big week. And, and the intent to cut, which isn't written in here. Did everybody sign the second place in there?
The intent to cut need all of our signatures.
3.
Say 3 on it. Not needed.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. We will open up public comment, as we've done previous. If folks who have public comment can come up to the front near the microphone, that would be helpful for the video. Come on. Hi.
What's the Crawley Falls Road? I'd like to apply, put in what they call a statement of interest for the library trust.
Okay. Yes, that can just be done directly to Karen. So there you go. Duly filed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other public comment? Liz, come on up.
Liz Furia, South Road. So I went to the school board meeting last night where I was very dismayed to hear that they needed money to cover a deficit that they would have had at the end of the year of $16,000. And they voted to accept $10,000 of police impact fees. How can the school board, which is a totally different budget, take impact fees that are of the operating budget of the town, since the school budget is different than the town budget?
Right, I'm happy to explain that. We discussed this at multiple meetings over, 6 months ago or so. There was a safety and security project that needed to be done at the school that was completely unbudgeted for. So not in their budget, they did not raise revenue for it. We discussed whether or not it could be paid for by impact fees, and there was a lot of discussions amongst various lawyers, and we had to do some maneuvering, and by getting that plan on the capital improvement plan for the town, we were able to use school impact fees for that. We're also able to use police impact fees because it was a safety police. Voluntarily made that decision to use that money towards this project. So really what you heard last night was an unanticipated expense that pushed them over budget.
Something like $73,000.
Correct, which has now been covered by impact fees and puts them back sort of in a neutral budgetary situation.
But we pay at the end of the year, or we have paid for several years, numerous amounts of money at the end of the year. What the 150 or 200,000 that we have left over to safety and security is one we put into every year. I just don't understand how they missed this. And I still don't understand how you can do town to school when they're totally separate. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand how they're on the
We
capital.
were advised by
improvement
legal
fund.
counsel, both from the town and from the school, that it was permissible.
Who's our legal counsel now?
Who advised us on that particular issue?
It's Mitchell Municipal.
Mitchell Municipal.
Mitchell Municipal? And also by the school?
The school has their own legal team that weighed in on this as well. And this was not budgeted for, this was not
Yeah,
a
no, it
project that
wasn't
was known
budgeted.
about during the budget season for the school.
But I'm curious what they've done all these months and years with the safety and security.
I guess you'd have to ask the
People.
school and
Yep.
their, about their budget.
Well,
Thank you.
one of the school members.
Go ahead and ask then. Yep. Any other public comment?
This is just a very quick thing. Becky Dunn on Block Drive. Driving by the school the last few weeks, I've noticed that the dedication to Robert Schroeder has peeled off and it looks terrible. I don't know if it's the town's responsibility or the school, but that needs to be replaced. It's not that it just folded down, it's just gone.
Oh, okay.
And
I'm
it
assuming
looks
that's
terrible.
under the school. Letty, would that be under the school's purview, that?
Are you talking about the rock or the
Yeah,
sign?
the sign is peeled off. It's just,
The rock?
the sign is a metal plaque that's affixed to the
But it's-
rock by
But
screws.
so I think,
I think the PFG donated that to the,
yeah, but I wanna say Wayne put the rock there, so I don't know who
Who
actually.
bought the sign or who?
Yeah,
Do we think that
It
was the
looks
PFG?
terrible.
I think Wayne helped move the rock because I think the rock came from the fire station and then was relocated there. But the sign was done by the PFG and then donated to the school,
So
I
maybe it
believe.
needs to be replaced or repaired.
I have a photo of it if you need a photo of it. It
Sure,
looks
if you wouldn't mind
terrible.
emailing it to me.
I'll email you the photo.
It sounds like that's more under the school purview, but we can pass it
Okay.
along.
I can pass it along to Mr. Q.
Other public comment? All right, seeing none, we will move on. Discussion action items, our first item on here is proposed technology upgrades. I think I'm turning it over to you, Karen, or are you taking a lead on it?
Yes, so I have 3 quotes here, one for a domain controller upgrades. So there's 2 separate quotes for domain controller upgrades, one is for town office and one is for PD. These are to do with our licensing, our Microsoft licensing for our server. So this will buy us, upgrade the licensing, we did the VMware last year, and so this prevents us from having to replace the physical hardware for another 5 years.
And is this,
So this is already budgeted for in the IT capital reserve fund.
okay,
So I would just be requesting to expend the funds out of that capital reserve fund.
is this the IT capital reserve fund that we had extensive discussion about at town meeting?
Yes,
Okay, so this is funded out of that?
yes.
Okay. Questions from the board about this?
Was it an upgrade or just a warranty, or, I'm sorry, I
It's
missed the,
updating the licensing
oh, licensing.
so that
okay.
it's coming out of support now.
The licensing that's on the server now will stop being supported at the end of the year.
Okay.
So.
So none of
kind of
this is
the do or
physical,
die
none of this is physical equipment, it's all
software.
basically software and licensing?
Yes.
Okay.
So I would request $14,948 out of the capital reserve fund.
Moved. Second.
Andy and John.
Any more discussion? Russ, any questions?
No.
Okay.
What, and the, internet upgrade may help our camera situation too.
Yes.
I didn't know we weren't at a gig speed internet, so,
This will bring us up to that.
yes.
And then the only other request I would foresee out of this reserve fund this year would be to replace some computers. So I'll go through the inventory to see a handful of those will need to be updated this year as
And
well.
when you were talking about the need for replacement servers, that's the physical server that has an escalated cost?
Yes,
And we anticipate that when?
not for 5 years.
In
If
5
we're
years,
doing
okay.
If we do the actual hardware and we do this software update now.
Okay.
So the 14 is for all 3 quotes, correct?
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? I have a motion and a second.
Where do you see the? The last quote,
Yes, I would def-
See what we have.
no,
Getting a gig. I guess that would be my question, because that's a gig. And it's relevant now in the area.
So would you rather not move forward with this last quote and look into fiber options instead? Like do BIOS?
I mean, yeah, it can be, there's Consolidated Communications and Fidium and Comcast all offering 1 gig service now, which we really should have.
So do you want to remove the 468 from the vote and
Yeah,
then
if we could.
update that quote?
I'm wondering if this was a mistype, because
No, probably not, because it's saying 100. They would, if it was a mistype, I would have thought it would be,
1,000 megabyte would be a gig, so if they forgot a zero.
if it is a,
If it is a gig,
if
then
it
move
is
forward.
if it is 1,000 instead of 100 megabytes per second, then that's fine.
Because if we don't have 100 now, I have 500 at my house, and that's just a normal plan.
I know, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, we should have.
We just have a regular business class plan right now.
So we need to have a gig.
So hold on this last 468 quote until we get that clarified.
Unless that's a gig, then
Okay.
yes, hold on that last one. I don't know what you want that motion to be, but that's,
To approve the first 2 quotes here, maybe?
So you approve $14,948 to be expended out of the IT hardware contingent upon quote 1555 being based off of 1 gig of internet service.
yeah,
And otherwise it would be reduced to 14,480.
correct.
Okay.
Andy, it's Andy's motion though.
Yes, that's,
Is Block 5, is that our IT service
Yes.
provider? But they're not our internet provider.
No, they just facilitate our services
Okay.
and support for our hardware.
And who's the internet with?
Comcast.
Yeah, so we probably have 100 now.
Right now it's 70? Oh, then it was 8, 9.
well, that's uploaded.
Oh, upload. Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that passes. They're not on here, but I have a couple follow-up items that have just been kind of floating out there that I'd like to touch base on. One is we had a discussion with Chief Byrd during budget season about the desire to overhaul how we do PTO, sick days, et cetera, and accrual. And I just spoken with Karen about that briefly. Maybe if you can just give us an update on sort of when those discussions are going to move forward.
Chief Ventura is on vacation this week, so we were going to try to touch base with the 2 chiefs next week and see if we can come up with an initial proposal to bring to the board. So I would anticipate that coming to the board in the next meeting or 2, depending on how much.
Okay. Any feedback from the board about that process? Do you guys remember that? I know, Paul, it was before you were on the board. We had a discussion about some of the inherent inequities with PTO, given that fire does 24-hour shifts and other departments do 8-hour shifts, and just needing to kind of clean up everything. And Chief Byrd feeling that some other towns offered enhanced PTO incentives compared to potentially what Brentwood offers, and just wanting to kind of take a relook at that system and make sure that what we're offering is, comparable with similar towns. I know you had felt, that was an important conversation. Did I describe that accurately?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I don't think it's necessarily fire-based, that everybody should have the same amount
Right.
of time.
It just came from fire as the
Yes.
kind of impetus. Okay, so next 1 to 2 meetings, that will probably come back to us. Okay. Couple other follow-up items. We had, at our last meeting, had a lengthy discussion about the website contract. Karen, I don't know if Josh or Karen can give us an update on that.
So we had Primex review the initial terms and conditions of the website. They had suggested some changes which were presented to Municipal One before I left on vacation. They were agreeable to striking instead of making some of the amendments. And they supplied that to me yesterday afternoon. So we've gone back and asked them for an extension so that we could go back and renegotiate some of those terms and conditions.
What about that escalator cap?
They were agreeable to that, to adding that into the,
Gonna go back to them on the choice of forum as part of the contract.
yeah, so the big sticky wicket is the governing state of law in the initial terms and condition is the state of Missouri. We had asked them to change it to the state of New Hampshire, which they had agreed to strike that clause entirety. And so I spoke to Paul about that yesterday, whether that would be acceptable to accept it being stricken, or whether that would put us in a more precarious situation if we were to go through litigation with that firm.
I'm assuming they're located in Missouri?
Yeah.
Their home base?
I mean, my preference would be that we have like a choice of forum as New Hampshire, along with a choice of law as New Hampshire. Otherwise, it could just be left up to a court to decide what the choice of forum would be. So not having it in there, which is what they were proposing, just sort of then ultimately leaves it up to a judge.
Because it's just not stated.
Right.
Okay. So we're just, sounds like working out a few little nitpicky legal details.
Yes.
But our big clause that we wanted about not doing an extreme escalation in price after year 6
Was agreed.
was agreed to.
Yes.
Perfect.
But, so, the venue is not agreed to? They did?
They said they would strike it. Instead of replacing Missouri with New Hampshire, they would just remove the paragraph.
That's a weird thing to argue about.
Yeah, it usually gets resolved.
That's, yeah. Well, but I don't usually, I have not seen it be completely stricken.
Me neither, that's why I called.
That seems unusual to me.
Yeah,
You would obviously know better than I would, but
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it would be,
unusual?
yeah.
To not specify
Yeah.
where legal
Yeah.
disputes would be resolved.
Yeah, because otherwise then you're leaving it up in the air and you have some level of uncertainty, and that's the whole point of having an agreement, so.
And so as far as we know, the deadline had been yesterday, but there's
We-
an extension while we work out these little details.
Yes, we did request an extension.
Okay, perfect. Another follow-up item, I was also at the school board meeting last night as the select board rep, and there was a brief conversation about town elections in that it came up out of a discussion that their board was having about setting their schedule for next year. And the school board continued to feel that while they were in agreement to us having our 2 March elections at the school, one of which is on the weekend, and the November presidential election at the school was not yet comfortable allowing us to have the 2 primaries at the school, which are in February and September. So I did want to bring that back to this board. I know Daphne and myself, and presumably some other board members, are uncomfortable with the idea that some of our elections would be in one location and some of our elections would be in another location. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, given the whole reason we moved it was safety concerns, space concerns, crowding, errors, etc. So I did want this board to take that issue back up and decide how we would like to continue to engage with the school board to see if we could potentially renegotiate that issue with them. So I don't know how everyone feels about that. I know Daphne, spoke to me offline that she feels pretty strongly that all our elections need to be held in the same venue if possible.
Is the reasoning for them declining,
Not wanting to close the school those 2 additional days.
but aren't they already closed? Because they're following Newfield's schedule, and Newfield holds all of their elections in their school buildings?
I don't believe they are already closed on the February and September dates. I think for the November date, yes, they were already closed. Am I speaking correctly, Letty?
Yeah, so I did ask about that because I know that other schools do
Yes.
hold elections. The difference is that at Swayze, there's no way for us to section off where the voting is held, and also it's the cafeteria. So if the kids have nowhere to eat, then there's no way to partition where voters would be separate from where students would be.
So some other local elementary schools are able to hold elections while also holding school the same day.
And some of them just close the school.
Yep.
It varies.
So I think that we should have a discussion. We're getting a lot of feedback. Sure, we're feeding back. That's a little bit, I moved this one over, it's a little better. So I think as this board, we need to decide how we'd like to move forward, whether we want to invite the school board chair to come to a meeting to work it out, whether we want to send a letter to the school, or, just how this board feels about the issue. I understand the back and forth about this is a school and that's a school cafeteria. I just feel it's not a true solution to our problem to put half of our elections there and keep half of them at the rec.
Should be all or nothing.
That's how I feel. Other board feedback?
No,
The one, sorry.
Yeah, you go.
The one thing that I'm a hard and fast, absolutely not even willing to consider is having elections while school is on in the building. Like,
I think it's just not feasible because of the.
feasible, yeah, feasible or not, that's just where I'm.
Yeah.
So I'm curious why this adamance about having, the same locale as.
Well, a reason for moving the elections is that we've outgrown the rec. At the rec, we do not have enough space for the multiple check-ins that we need to break the last names up into more than 2 sections. We also had the issue with the absentee ballots where they were sort of being counted in a very crowded space, and we had a significant error that occurred in our prior election. And of course, we had no errors in the last election. So I think the thought from our town moderator, our town clerk, is that we have outgrown the rec center, and they are the ones that came to us and asked us to find an alternate location for elections because of the fact that they had felt that we had outgrown that site, as we've had upwards of 1,000 voters compared to 10 years ago when we had 400 voters.
So to answer your question of, not to downgrade anybody or make fun of anybody or whatever, people can't remember when trash and recycling are. They're not gonna remember where voting is held once or 4 times a year. So if you move it around, you have the confusion. I mean, then you have people going to one place and coming out of there.
I personally, I understand that Swayze is more comfortable because it is larger. To me, it seems like we can make it work at the rec. Like that's just, I think that we can, we have extra space that we give to third parties, which I would like them to be there, but obviously the integrity of the election comes first, and so we can do it.
I agree with you on a town election, presidential primary, I don't think so. Last presidential primary, we had to do it to school, and the school was busy. And I think one of these elections they're talking about not allowing is a presidential primary.
It is.
It is, September,
It's the presidential primary in the state,
February.
the February one.
February.
Russ, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, it seems simple to me that the recommendation, strong recommendation is to have it there and to have it be there for all elections. So whatever we can do to try and make that happen, whatever, you as the rep for the board suggest, I'm willing to go with whatever idea you think is best in terms of trying to meet them somewhere that they can be comfortable with. If not, then we can, all this stuff is gonna be relevant again, we can discuss, but, yeah.
I also think it's an important conversation to have about the variability of this. So next year is the worst possible, not the worst, the maximum number of elections. Whereas this year we have 1, and in 2025 there will be 1. So it's a total anomaly, and the 2 days fall actually in 2 separate school years. So I think if we could sort of negotiate with the school a little bit, with maybe some reassurances that this is like an every 4-year thing, not an every year thing, I'm hoping maybe we can find some middle ground with them. So I can touch base with Allison and see if she maybe wants to come speak with the board or, willing to negotiate offline. But I definitely feel like we ideally would use the school for all elections. I thought they went much smoother and better last time.
My thought would be that you and Daphne are actually on the school agenda, so this conversation's held in public and people can.
Yeah.
Let's go to them and extend the olive branch.
Yeah.
And then if that doesn't work, then.
Yeah, I think having them come as guests would make sense.
No, us go there,
Oh,
on
yeah.
their agenda,
Oh, sure.
you and Daph.
We can do that.
Because I just feel inviting them here kind of sounds like go to the principal's office.
Intended.
Oh,
could
there
go
was-
to Mr.
There was a
Q's
huge
office.
pun intended, but.
So we could go to the principal's office.
Yeah, we can ask to get on the agenda for their next month's meeting. Okay. Any other comments about that issue?
No, I think it makes sense, especially in light of the issue you raised about, error and how that's such a heightened thing.
Sure, yeah, we
These
want to
days.
have the cleanest elections that we can. Okay. Last follow-up item I had on here was we had discussions about changing the way we do committee reappointments. And I was going over the dates with Karen. The rec openings have been posted, and actually that application period closes next week. So if there's anybody listening or anybody present who plans on applying for the open rec positions, that closes, I believe, next Thursday. The library alternates was posted like a week and a half ago.
On the 20th?
So that's got a couple weeks left open. And then next up, after those close, we'll have to replace the ZBA member and communications committee. So stay tuned for that at an upcoming meeting that we will be posting those openings. And I think we have 3 applications so far, you said, for rec?
Yes.
Okay. So just up that. A piece of mail that I wanted to just bring forward was we received a notification from the state that they will be paving North Road. What I didn't see on there is a timing.
No, they said they're going to be scheduling a kickoff meeting, which they've invited us to attend, and in that meeting, they will discuss their schedule plus traffic details.
Okay. Is there anything special we need to do to prepare for that?
Not at this time.
Okay. And there was a note in there about they would only pay for traffic details if our officers had a specific training.
Correct.
Are we all set on that?
I will need to double check with the
Check with
chief.
John? Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Last thing that was in the mail is I saw a GoFundMe from the library. So the library has put up a GoFundMe for community fundraising to help pay for the cost of the amphitheater. So anyone who's interested in offering support for that, you can find online or on Facebook through GoFundMe. And I think that was it.
Do we know where we stand on bring a submerged plan to start?
I talked to McConnell, working with their contractor, to try to get to the point where they can put it out as sort of a staged project and trying to figure out how to do that. They have some good ideas about which things can be held off for later. Like, for example, putting the electric in, but not putting any of the light fixtures in until a phase 2 or 3. So I've been going back and forth a little bit with Liz McConnell. I did invite her if she wanted to come to our meeting and kind of give us an official update. I think they were getting a little bit nervous about the time that's going to be required. But, Karen and I spoke that we anticipated it would take time for them to come back with like a firm number. And so it sounds like the work is being done pretty aggressively at their level about trying to get some numbers to come before us with.
I have 2 documents for you to sign.
Okay.
I have a large event application that was submitted by Grace Ministries. They're looking to host an event at the BRC on June 24th from 12 to 5. The purpose is to raise funds for Bridges House of Hope and to build community support and awareness, and it's already been approved by PD, Fire, and the Building Department.
Okay.
I would just need to run it by Rick Murphy, who is the Emergency Management Director, if you all approve. PD is requiring a
A detail?
police detail, yes.
And what size event do we require wire one of these large events
Over 100 people.
over 100 people. And do we need to sign anything or
I just
vote?
need you to initial right here, just one person.
Any comments about this or concerns?
I move pending approval of emergency management.
Do we anticipate emergency management having any?
I do not, but he
Concerns?
is traveling right now.
Okay.
A second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Mine for your birthday party. Hold on.
And then, this is the Select Board's handbook. The revisions that were made was to change Board of Selectmen to Select Board or Select Person. The only other revision made is there was a limitation on your scope of responsibility, and it excluded the fire chief under his statute, the library trustees under their statute, and then I added police chief under 105, which is the statute that he was hired under.
Did we adjust as well the section about the committee appointments? That we were
Yes.
gonna change the wording in there?
So this is that section there and how that was amended.
So this was what we talked about, 90 days prior to a term expiring or when a vacancy occurs, the position will be posted on the town website. Candidates must apply by completing the statement of interest and submitting this form to the town administrator within 30 days. At the close of the posting period, the board applications submitted. In making these majority vote, the board should always discuss individual qualifications in a non-public session except for positions that are subject to future elections, in which case all discussions must be done in public. Ultimately, decisions to appoint should be made based primarily on a candidate's qualifications, experience, track record, and ideology, even when considering reappointments. The last part of that lingo is preserved from last time. And other than that, no significant changes.
Not in the manual now.
Okay.
Can we leave it to review till next meeting?
I think that would be reasonable. There may be, I mean, I don't know, Paul, if you've had a chance to look through this since coming onto the board. The last time it was officially changed, I think, was 2021. It was before I came on.
Where would I look?
It's on the
It's on the
public
drive.
drive.
Yeah, Karen can point you towards where it is electronically, or she can give you a paper copy. I think it might be worthwhile to see if there's any other things that the current board wants to
Sure.
tweak, so maybe just table that.
Can you just like email it?
Yes.
Post it for me on my,
If you can get into your OneDrive, it's part of your OneDrive. There's a public Board of
She can
Selectmen
show you how to do
folder.
it. Anything else you have for us?
Not for public session.
Okay. Regular business, board committee updates. We'll start here with Andy. Anything you have for us?
Nope.
John?
Economic development, we have the first quarterly business breakfast coming up, 9 o'clock on Monday. Congressman Chris Pappas will be joining us as a small business owner and federal representative in DC. So if you're interested, please reach out to Jillian Benedict. Find the site. It's on the town's social media feed and on Facebook and the website, I believe. And hope to see everyone who's there Monday 9 at the rec. Also on Saturday, the 12th, we have listening sessions for the community engagement workshop of the redesigning or designing the ultimate rec. Like, what is the wish list for the community for what the rec could be in the future? So we're going to have 12 to 13 landscape architects, engineers, designers who are volunteering their time to come listen to community leaders and Brentwood residents to help us to design the vision of what would be the ideal recreational campus. The listening sessions are for the public are from 3:30 to 5 and from 6:30 to 8 at the rec on Friday. So 3:30 to 5 and 6:30 to 8 on Friday afternoon and evening, and would really encourage everyone from the public who's interested in contributing their ideas to attend one of those sessions. If you can't come, again, please email Jillian Benedicts at the town office with your ideas and input. We're gonna have for the committee updates.
Sure, yeah, if you have other board members, your board things, you can either bring it up now or committees first. Back.
I'm on a roll, so
Okay.
I'll just keep going.
Go for
As
it.
long as it can legally come before the board.
I can't promise. We've had another horrific and terrible tragedy of an accident on 125 in at virtually the same place that we've had. I can't even count how many at this point. I know that we've gotten some visibility from Councilor Stevens, which I appreciate. I would like to request that this board submit a public letter to the governor's office and to ask that an emergency session take place to institute necessary emergency changes at this intersection. I mean,
Given two
I-
deaths in
I-
a 6-month period.
I think we're there, you know, and I think that it is incumbent upon us as community leaders to make sure that this is heard at the highest level possible. I think there's already a little bit of traction. I'd like to capitalize on that traction in terms of, we have some visibility with Councilor Stevens. I think it's our turn now to push as hard as we can for public safety.
Yeah, just to follow on that, I had a phone call with Ms. Counselor Stevens on Friday, and she's very upset. She has spoken with one of the commissioners about signage coming out, which is supposed to be happening at some point immediately.
Like
She
a
wanted-
temporary flashing sign or something?
Yeah, and that, she wanted me to call upon that happening, and otherwise she said she's speaking with the governor to let him know, what is going on. She, understands that this is a crisis. Having said all, so I mean, I have, her ear, and, would anticipate, continuing to be in contact with her, but I do think it's a good idea to, have the imprimatur of this board to, let, the state know that this is a crisis and needs to be done, with that in mind.
And I know Chief Ventura is away, but I did really appreciate his media comments and his quotes in Seacoast Online, where he really did not pull any punches, and he was pretty just straightforward. That I think he called himself a squeaky wheel, that he was going to be a squeaky wheel until he saw something happen here. So
Really, that's,
definitely,
to be honest with you, that's really what struck me as well. And I
I was
said,
impressed.
I said the chief's doing his part, we
Yep.
need to do our part.
He
Well,
also reached
sec-
out, sorry,
Go
go.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, he also reached out to Councilor Stevens last week after the
Yeah,
accident.
I know he did.
I'll second John's motion.
Any other comments?
No, just I think we got coverage in the community leader too. And I will say that they're doing a lot of traveling between here and Plastow to the water there. And the towns have definitely increased coverage.
It's noticeable.
Yeah, definitely noticed more cruisers, which is great.
My brother drove up from Andover, and he's like, "What's with all the cruisers on 125?" I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's us. Like, that's sorry, like that's us. That we did that." And I almost every time I drive down 125, I see cruisers and I see people pulled over. So I don't know how much of a difference that makes in the long run, but
No, ultimately, we need a light at South Road, and I think that's what Councilor Stevens
Yep.
is working towards, but it's
Yep.
an incremental
Yep.
thing.
Okay.
But,
I think the speed limit is the easiest start.
well, the
Right.
speed limit being lowered as well.
as it is in multiple sections on
Right.
125.
I mean, a traffic light is engineering studies, it's widening the road,
Yeah,
that's not something you can do today.
right.
But lowering the speed limit, correct.
Speed limit and, a turning lane would be a good, we gotta take some action,
Yeah.
and.
But it takes time, you have to build the road. I mean, if you build a turning lane, putting traffic lights in is just as easy at the same time.
My frustration is that we've known that this has been a problem at this intersection
Forever,
for
forever.
years.
Yeah.
And people are dying every year.
But to have 2 deaths in like a 5-month period
Yeah,
is,
It's incumbent
Painful.
upon us to take action.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for saying.
so I'm assuming the language of that letter, we can have Karen draft something up, but just sort of saying that we as a board are asking for some urgent measures to be taken, you know, in a timely fashion, not in a long-term fashion.
Please convene a team, a crisis response team to address and implement necessary
Immediate
safety
interventions.
changes on Brentwood section 125, with particular focus of South Road and 125.
Okay, I had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that passes. Anything else you have?
And we'll CC Councilor Stevens on that,
Sure.
of course.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, Russ?
ZBA, just wanted to clarify, the ZBA has a meeting this month, I believe, speaking of Jillian, I got an email from her, I don't, off the top of my head, know what day it is, but it usually happens on a Monday. So am I still a voting member for now, or am I just going to represent the board?
I think the recommendation of this board, when we had that last discussion, was to pull you back to be a non-voting ex officio member.
Right, I just didn't know
Free
if
up
we
your
were
seat.
waiting until they got a fifth, voting member, whatever, but
Do they still have 2 alternates?
They have one.
One. So,
I was the alternate.
Kathy St. Hilaire was the alternate that resigned,
Right.
and then
So there's one.
there's one left.
I would think you making that change now, and then they can have a discussion at that meeting about
Yeah, that's fine.
posting for interest to join that board.
They would still have a quorum to be able to vote on the application.
Right, it's just a matter of if it was,
Do you want to talk it over with that board and see if they feel strongly?
most
about-
likely it's not a big deal. I just wanted to make sure I was clear. I attended the Energy and Efficiency Committee meeting, I think that was 2 weeks ago. And they had the Standard Power folks in, which is another option. You know, the community-
Supplier option, right?
Community Power Coalition is doing its thing. I think the chair of our committee, Rick Lebrecht, I think he said they're up to about 32 towns, Community Power Coalition is.
Wow.
Anyway, so Standard Power gave their presentation, which was a good presentation, and I guess I'll just say that there obviously was no decision made. It's all gathering information right now and trying to make an informed decision. But I will say, that committee, our committee, the town's committee, is impressive.
There's some serious solar
There's some-
and energy brain power
There's
on
some
that committee.
serious brain power in that crew, and to see them peppering Standard Power with every question you could imagine and many that you couldn't, it was really something. And then I know Rick Lebrecht, again, the chair, attended Community Power Coalition meeting that week. But all that is, I guess, to lead up to when would I like to have Rick Lebrecht come in.
I actually was
Gotta
gonna
give us an
just put
update.
myself a note to ask that, do you feel like they're at a point where coming to update the board on their status? Are they there yet?
I can ask him.
Okay.
I should have asked him then, but they went like however long, I think it was an hour and a half or whatever,
Okay.
and I was like, I had to go.
So they must have another meeting in like the next 2 weeks?
I think it's the third, third Wednesday.
Do you want to maybe ask them?
But I can send him a
timeframe?
note and ask him if he feels like this is a good,
I think it would be
not-
helpful for this board, especially, we had tried to see if we could get something done last year, but it was just not enough time in terms of putting community power in front of the voters.
Right.
So I think now that we're getting towards the summer, I personally would like to hear from that board how they're feeling about community power. Are they looking to put it as a warrant in March? and just kind of how they're feeling about everything. I think to get a jump on it, I'd like to hear an update from them when they're ready.
And speaking of news coverage, if you pay attention to that kind of thing, the Community Power Coalition has been in the news a lot. Both good and struggles with
Sure.
some legislative related stuff. So there's been a lot going on, and I know that Rick and his committee have been on top of all that stuff, monitoring it all, so.
The other kudos I want to give Rick is from the school board angle.
Yeah.
So Rick has been helping the school pretty significantly with their sort of exploration into the option of maybe doing solar at the school at some point, and they sing his praises. So we're
Yeah.
lucky to have him as chair of that
We really,
committee.
yeah, we really are, and like I say, in the whole crew, the whole committee. I think that was it, other than to the members of the communications committee here, again, much appreciation for all the hard work. Excited about how close we're getting to entering the 20th century. I mean,
21st.
right, 21st century.
Buck Rogers.
Yeah, so, good stuff,
Okay.
all progress.
Anything else you have for us?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay.
I was already looking at Paul.
Paul, anything you have for us?
Well, the planning board's been quiet, but I would defer to my friend Mr. Finnan if there's any.
Just make the change for the, fill your position, that's the only thing we do.
Yes.
Was an alternate
Yeah,
appointed? to
yeah,
fill-
Mark Kennedy.
You don't have that in front of you, so.
I don't believe so.
They can sign their own appointments.
I think that was the discussion we had about legislatively that rests in the hands of your board.
Right, and that's what we had
because-
decided at the
Yeah.
planning board. So I think he's all set.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I just thought it would be nice to inform you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, thank you.
And I wonder at some point.
He had everyone's unanimous blessing.
Great.
so.
Wonderful. I wonder at some point in terms of planning board coming before this board, I know that the chair had, at a previous meeting I was at, had talked about the housing grant and how that process is gonna start unfolding over the coming months. I think when that is deeper into the process, I think it might be helpful for the public to have that sort of brought to this board so that people know what's going on with that grant and what progress is being made. So if you can pass that along, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you have for us?
That's it.
Okay. The only other committee thing I had thought about is for Conservation Committee, it's been about, 15 months since the town approved for a bond of up to $3 million to buy some local property and put it into conservation. And I know Bob had been our prior Concon rep and had reported to us on a regular basis that there were 3 or 4 parcels that were being looked at, but that it was sort of a long process. I'm wondering if this summer we might want to have the chair come before this board to give us an update as we're kind of approaching the midway point of that. I think that bond was good for 5 years. 5 years. So as we've gotten past the year mark, I wonder if the board would be in favor of them coming before us and giving us updates on how those discussions are going.
So
I believe there's a meeting on the 10th, and I
You can bring that
discuss
to
it.
them. Okay, perfect. I think that'd be helpful because we haven't heard from them directly in a while. Okay. And then Karen, you had said that one announcement to make is about the Arkell.
Yes, we will
Memorial.
have a memorial service at the Tonry Cemetery on Friday, May 12th at 11:30.
11:30 a.m.
Yes.
Any other board business? Karen, anything else you have for us?
Where was that?
At Tonry Cemetery,
Have for us?
not for public session.
Anything else on anybody's mind before we go to non-public? We have non-public for legal, personnel,
Reputation
reputation. Does that
and
cover
real
all?
estate.
I move we go into non-public A, 91A for legal, reputation, personnel and real estate.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll go to non-public. Thank you all.
John, did you second that?
John did, yeah.